Hey all, I'm the Clone Vos, and today we're gonna do something different. Instead of my normal Let's Plays, I'm gonna do a review, or first impressions, or whatever you want to call it, of something that Blizzard released at BlizzCon about 24 hours ago from this recording. They released information of their new first-person shooter, Overwatch. What we know so far is that Blizzard has wanted to do this for a while now. There are some who claim it's a Team Fortress 2 clone. You can't see it, but I put air quotes around that. However, there are 12 classes so far in the beginning alpha stages, instead of TF2's 9. And Blizzard even responded about this in a Q&A. Quote, we take that as a compliment. We love that game. But we think that as you play it, you'll realize how incredibly different it is. There are similarities already. We have 12 heroes, while they have their 9 characters that have a roster and are customizable, while ours aren't. Overwatch is also about abilities and the heroes, not just killing people. It's a first-person shooter, but it's about the abilities, rather than the shooting always. End quote. In Overwatch, in TF2, there are 3 offensive, 3 defense, and 3 support. Even number across the board. While in Overwatch, there are 4 offensive, 3 defensive, 2 tanks, and 3 support. Overwatch is also a 6v6 matchup. There's no more, no less. Quick disclaimer, I will be mentioning and referencing TF2 a lot, because that's the only FPS game I've ever played. Also, I do not own any of these images. I do not own any of the music in the background, or any video I might show. Anyway, moving on. Overwatch is set 60 years in the future, 30 years after the Omnic Crisis, a war on robots who basically went insane for some reason. We're not entirely sure yet. But we'll get into that later. Let's begin, shall we? From what we see in the cinematic that they released on Friday, it at first seemed very Pixar-like. Cue cinematic here, and yes, I will be playing the entire cinematic trailer, so feel free to skip ahead 6 minutes if you wish to go to the actual content of the video. Anyway, roll cinematic.
Conflict. As the world teetered on the brink of anarchy, a new hope arose. An elite international task force charged with ending the war and restoring liberty to all nations. Overwatch. Soldiers, scientists, adventurers, oddities. Guardians who secured global peace for a generation. Under its steadfast protection, the world recovered. And today, though its watch has ended, its soaring ideals of freedom and equality will never be forgotten.
That was so cool! In that one battle, they had Soundquake. Remember, he has, like, chest missiles? So which one's your favorite? Mine's Fusionator. No. Tracer. Yeah, Tracer. She's like, cheers, love. The cavalry's here. Pew, pew, pew. Whoa. That's Doomfist's gauntlet. Oh, man. They said he could level a skyscraper. And remember, he was all fighting and Winston beat him and was like, Primal Punch!
That's only in the holovids. Everybody knows Overwatch got shut down. Half of them are just mercenaries now.
Enjoying the exhibit? All right, playtime's over. Get to cover.
Come on, move it!
There you are.
Psst, what are you looking at? Don't worry, loves. Cavalry's here. Come on, big guy. Get up. Oh no!
Stay here.
Watch out!
Hey!
You know, the world could always use more heroes. Yeah! That was awesome!
The cinematic itself seemed to be more something to be shown as something you'd see as a trailer for the next movie by Disney or Pixar, as I said. That'll be released soon. Trademark. Insert in there soon. Anyway, when we look at the cinematic, we see four of the main heroes out in the alpha. Tracer, who you see in the upper left corner. Winston, who is in the upper right. Widowmaker, who I couldn't find an image of. And Reaper, who is on the bottom. All of which I'll discuss about later. We also see two kids, one younger who looks up to Overwatch as idols, and the other who's just kind of there. Things happen involving the four I mentioned, and it ends with Tracer's line to it too. Or the world could always use more heroes, or something along that line. Looking at this concept art, we see more than 12 original. There's a cowboy who, going to League of Legends here, looks much like a future of Graves. And then there's a masked man who looks like a samurai of sorts. Lastly, there's a man in a gas mask. We're not sure who they are. Then we see the 12 we know about, from left to right, front first, then back. Tracer, Torbjorn, Zenyatta, Hanzo, Winston, Symetra, Bastion, and Bastion in the first row. In the second row, left to right once more, we see Widowmaker and Reaper. And in back, again, left to right, is Mercy, Pharah, and Reinhardt. All of which we'll talk about later for their own slide. But seeing there's 3 extra heroes means they're still in progress of making or were scrapped in the creation. Odds are they're in progress. The full team, though, seems to consist of many from different backgrounds, so it's not American A and American B. Here's looking at you, Scout and Soldier, Mr. Patriotic, and Mr. Boston. American A, American B. Good example right there. For example, Widowmaker is from France, Tracer is from England, and Winston is a giant gorilla from the moon. Moon. What am I talking about? Yes. But yes, that is canon. No, I won't question it. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'm going through my thoughts of, and the basic rundown of what heroes we know of. Yes, all of them. I'll be giving a brief backstory, sum up their abilities and weapon or weapons, then my thoughts of the hero in general. So let's start with the heroes. Tracer, or Lena Oxton from London, England, first, because she was released at BlizzCon, as what they said already. From her background, while at BlizzCon, we saw she was a pilot going to test a teleportation device on a plane. However, this device malfunctioned, and she instead began to phase in and out of time for weeks, months, or years until our friend, Winston, created the harness she now wears to let her use that ability to her own ends. I can't remember what that entirely is called, but there's some technical name for it. Her role in the game is offensive, and her weapons are her dual-wield phase pistols that basically, as Blizzard described it, a shotgun burst to the face. The slide was shown at BlizzCon itself, so I do not own this. I do not own any of these pictures. I will make that note again and again if I have to. But this is all of Tracer's skills. As we see, there's the dual phase pistols, and then we have her blink, which is her mobility tool. Lets her move 10 meters forward in 3 bursts. Or you can use this to maneuver faster or get around the map faster. It can be done in a heartbeat for a quick 30 meters, or it can be saved for 10 meters every now and then, which could be a huge burst to her next 2 real abilities. That one of the main abilities is recall. Whatever she used and places she's been, her condition of 3 seconds ago is where she is on using the power. Basically, whatever happened in the last 3 seconds to her is undone. Lastly, we see her ultimate ability, Pulse Bomb. A huge sticky bomb that will stick to whatever it touches and blow up in the next few seconds. This, along with 3 blinks, use of recall, is especially deadly from what we saw of one of the matches at BlizzCon. Now, my overall analysis is that she'll be a pain in the ass to fight against, pardon my French. Given she's so mobile, but her weakness is how squishy she is. And if you can keep a timer in your head of 3 seconds, you'll be fine. So, as long as you keep remembering where she was 3 seconds ago, every single time, keep that timer in your head, click, tick, tick, ticking, you should be fine enough if you can keep a handle on her. Anyway, that's enough about the British pilot. Next, we have Torbjorn Lindholm from Gothenburg, Sweden. From what we know at BlizzCon is simply that he was one of the original Overwatch from the Omnic Crisis. We also know that he has a fear of his machines he has a fear that his machines will be used against him, is what I'm trying to say here. The full entire history of him is on the Overwatch site itself, which I will put in the description below. He is one of the defensive heroes, and basically is one of the 2 engineer classes. Now, Torbjorn seems to have 5 different skills. His rivet gun, his hammer, building a turret, armor packs, and his ultimate, Molten Core. I don't know if that was a direct reference to the raid Molten Core, or it was just Blizzard being uncreative. I'm not quite sure. Anyway, the rivet gun seems to be his gun. Yeah, It's that simple. The hammer being for upgrading and repairing turrets, as well as melee weapon. The turret seems to be his main source of damage, however. Then there's the armor kit, which adds armor and to absorb damage to whoever picks it up. Lastly, the ultimate ability, Molten Core. It lets him build faster and repair faster, as well as greatly increases his scrap and supply and armor. Overall analysis is that Torbjorn can be a double-edged sword. He needs a choke point for his turret, but if you can get it down and keep the turret up, he's going to be a pain to truly kill, especially if he can do one thing that we saw in the gameplay that we saw at BlizzCon, which is put the turret on top of the payload. He can do that. I don't remember what it's called. There's a specific name that they released where Torbjorn puts the turret on top of the payload. But he needs a choke point. Honestly, the closest thing I could think of to him would be the engineer in TF2. Anyway, next hero is Zenyatta, or Tekartha Zenyatta, an Omnic Guru monk from Nepal. He is a support hero. From what we know, he was on the site. He was a monk that travels the world for spiritual enlightenment after the Omnic crisis, along with many other Omnics who wanted spiritual enlightenment, as they called it. He left to follow his own path on disagreeing with the other monks. Once again, full history is on the site, though I end up going to paraphrasing the histories a bit better later on. He is, as I said, he's a support. His main weapon is Orb of Destruction, which can be charged to fire multiple with right-click or one at a time with left-click. His other abilities are Orb of Harmony, a heal over time for the hero it's placed on, Orb of Discord, which increases damage taken by an enemy. Yeah, you can say he likes his orbs. And then his ultimate is Transcendence, a large AoE heal for everyone nearby, at least allies. Other than this, there's very little known about Zenyatta that I can truly say from what I've seen. Though my analysis, he seems like a devastating healer and a great damage dealer. But the heals are what'll change the game. It will always be the healers who can change the game. Next, we have Hanzo Shimada, an exiled ninja, assassin, and merc from Hanamura, Japan. I tried to get a better concept art of his entire body, but this is best I can get. He was part of the Shimada clan, a vast clan of assassins and criminals. He trained vigorously to take his father's place. To do this, he had to straighten out his wayward younger brother. This didn't work over so well, and he was forced to kill him. He didn't do it, and he rejected his father's legacy, and left the clan. What we know about Hanzo is that he is one of the most mobile right under Tracer. He is the only hero to have parkour, having the ability to climb up walls. His main weapon is his bow, which, from what I can tell, has infinite ammo. Don't ask how he has infinite arrows. I don't even understand myself. His other abilities is his Sonic Arrow, which lets him see through walls and see targets in its radius. He also has Scatter Arrow, which ricochets off walls and can strike multiple targets. His ultimate is Dragon Strike. He summons a Dragon Spirit, which basically destroys everything it touches. Now, my thoughts on him? He'll be probably deadly to face if you can't kill him fast. If he gets a Sonic Arrow to see where a massive group is, he can ultimate and kill you very fast without a shot being taken on towards him. If he can get a Sonic Arrow, he can go behind a wall and shoot Dragon Strike out. Dragon Strike goes through walls and devours everything in its path. So that combo can be a pain if you don't kill him fast enough. Okay, next is Winston. He has no surname. He's from the Horizon Lunar Colony. What? You really thought I was joking about the moon gorilla? No, I wasn't. I wasn't at all. He's actually a giant space gorilla from the moon. What we know about Winston is that he is close friends of Tracer, and helped her with her condition after the entire incident with the plane. He's genetically engineered and super intelligent, and he was among many who helped scientists with their experiments on the lunar base. Until Planet of the Apes happened. I mean, the gorillas took over the base. Totally didn't mention Planet of the Apes. Nope. He left the base and joined Overwatch. As for his abilities, he's a tank. He is one of the 2 tanks. He's meant to take and not deal damage. First, he has his Tesla cannon as a main weapon, short-ranged and lasts as long as the trigger is held. His abilities are Jump Pack, which is for his mobility. Shield Protector, which is self-explanatory. It basically places down a giant dome shield that allies can shoot through, but enemies can't shoot into. Lastly, his ultimate, Primal Fury. Basically, he goes berserk and flings everyone to the sides like ragdolls. And as we saw in the cinematic, it's all because someone stepped on his glasses. So in other words, don't mess with him if you step on his glasses. Overall, as tanks go, he seems rather versatile, and he'll be interesting to say the least. I'm not quite sure how his Primal Fury will really work as a tanky ability, but it'll be interesting to see what Blizzard does with him. Moving on, we have Symetra, or Satya Vaswani, from Utopia, India. I really hope I pronounced that right. She has something few others have, the ability to become a light-bending architect. Following the Omnic Crisis, Utopia was built from hard light. She approached construction differently than the dance of her peers as it is put on the site. She believes her actions serve the greater good, though she wonders if it's truly possible. Symetra is one of the 3 supporting classes. She's also much like the engineer, as well as along with Torbjorn, except she can also shield her allies. Her weapon is a photon projector, which can be charged to, from the video shown, fire through even a tank's shield and kill them immediately if it hits. Or it can instead be a steady stream that does more damage over time. Her abilities are a sentry turret, which you can place 6 of, photon shield, which absorbs damage on an ally as long as they're alive, and then her ultimate, or teleporter. She can set up teleporter to immediately get team members back in the match. Overall, she's rather balanced if you can destroy her turrets. However, her photon projector seems rather strong for a support class, if she manages to land a hit or keep the stream linked to her target. If those 2 things are cut out, most likely it'll be a much more balance. Anyway, next. 4 pages of script and only halfway done. With only the heroes, and there's more to cover. Anyway, continuing on. Next we have Bastion, or SST Laboratories Siege Automaton E54 Bastion. But no one has time to say that, so it's just going to be given the nickname Bastion. That is also the same name that every Omnic of that class has. He was, at one point, built as a peacekeeper. However, that didn't go over well when it got to the point of the Omnic Crisis, as with all robots, which they began to show the horrors of the war, and they were all disassembled, except for him. He was severely damaged and was dormant for a decade, possibly longer from what the site says. Overgrowth and Wild took over until it reactivated. It forgot its combat programming and began to be curious with nature. He's a more unique hero. He has 2 modes, Assault Rifle and Siege Mode. Siege Mode is heavy damage, but stationary, and can only fire in front, and at 90-degree angles from in front. while rifle is lighter damage, but mobile, and you can actually turn around to shoot people. You can choose which mode with Reconfigure. Another ability with Reconfigure, which lets you go from either siege mode to assault rifle mode, or vice versa. Now, he also has the ability Self-Repair. He stays motionless and unable to attack, and he regains health. His ultimate is a Remote Mine, which is remotely placed and triggers only when an enemy gets in range. He can be a double-edged blade. When you need to choose between heavy damage, no mobility, or light damage and mobility. It'll be interesting to see what is done with him. However, my thoughts are that with Self-Repair, perhaps it's going to be a quick repair, because that would be a major downfall if you're going to be, or a very Master Yi-like in League of Legends terms, with his meditation, where you have extreme amounts of armor and magic resist, and you take less damage while you regain health rapidly. What I feel Blizzard might do is just that. You take less damage while you gain extreme amounts of health. I'm not sure what they'll do with that, and I'm unsure what they'll do with Siege Mode, because you also, while in Siege Mode, gain a shield while aimed in front of you. Meaning his only weakness is from behind. Anyway, we'll see what happens with more announced. It's still very early alpha, and all this info was only released on Friday. Anyway, moving on, we have 7 down, but still going. Widowmaker is next, or Emily? I am bad with French names. Amélie Lacroix, from Anarchy, France. From what we know in BlizzCon, she was, in her former life, married to an Overwatch agent, Gerard Lacroix, and was a good girl, as Metzen put it. And then mind-controlled by the Talon terrorist group. We know nothing of Talon terrorist group. Or at least, very little, if anything, about them. She was reprogrammed as a sleeper agent and then found by Overwatch. She returned to a normal life and then killed her husband in his sleep. Oh, so that's why she has that. I feel like an idiot now. Anyway, she returned to Talon, where she finished her training fully. Her heart was slowed, that is why her skin is so blue, her heart and her blood is cold. Nice pun there, Blizz. Cold-blooded. I see what you did there. Who she was, the Emile Lacroix, is dead now. Widowmaker is what remains. As for her weapon, it's a multi-purpose assault rifle and sniper. So yes, she is your sniper character. If you love camping and sniping and headshots and all that fun stuff, she is the character you will want to play. Her weapon is left click for her assault rifle, and right click will be the scope sniper. It's a rather odd format, but it'll be interesting to play out having right click instead of the normal middle mouse button or whatever the zoom in is if they add it to console, which honestly I hope they don't do. Anyway, that'll go in later speculations and other content I'm adding. Her first ability is her grappling hook, which is her main mobility. It's how she moves from vantage point to vantage point. It's simple, easy, and point, use the ability, and bam, you're there. Next is the Venom Mine, which explodes and administers poison gas. And her ultimate is Infrasight, which lets her see targets through walls, and the sight is somehow shared with allies. I don't get how. Does she toss her goggles to the side to the other 5, or how does the Infrasight share? I don't. Never mind. Anyway, my thoughts is that she seems to be a normal defensive role sniper, and might be fun, but there's nothing really special about her other than the Infrasight and the grappling hook. She seems rather bland and is actually the only sniper-ish character. And for a sniper, it's rather dull for what it is. There's not much other than run around and use the assault rifle or sit in one place and snipe and get headshots. You can place down venom mines to defend, and you can use the grappling hook, but other than that, there's not much you can do with her. Not in that way. Anyway, next is the hero I've been wanting to talk about, Reaper. This one character has sparked my interest since seeing his concept art. No one knows who he is, or where he's from, or what he even is, if he's even human. A black-robed and masked terrorist who seems to be death himself. He shows up whenever there's conflict, and just makes things worse. He's a merc and responsible for many terrorist attacks throughout the world. The bodies recovered from his attacks are pale and lifeless, drained of everything. There are thoughts Reaper is a failed experiment who is living death, where his cells decay and regenerate at extremely fast rates. Now, Reaper seems to be one of the cooler characters in my opinion. His weapon, dual-wielded Hellfire shotguns. These seem to be slow fire, low ammo, but heavy damage. Best part? He reloads by tossing them aside and just pulling 2 new ones out of who knows where. One of his abilities is Wraith Form, where he becomes a shadow, unable to attack but able to go undamaged and move through enemies. His mobility is Shadow Step. You can move from location to location. Lastly, his ultimate, Death Blossom. This ability is what caught my eye extremely quickly. He strafes and fires rapidly, and does insane amount of damage. This makes Reaper, well, Reaper. Massive amount of damage in an offensive role. Thoughts overall, he's going to be one of the characters I play the most. He seems strong, however highly position-based and stealth required. If you don't use Shadow Step right, if you don't use Shadow Wraith Form right, you might as well fail at being him. Because Death Blossom, you'll be focused extremely often. Because people will not want you to get Death Blossom off. Because that alone, from what we've seen from gameplay videos, can get you a simple kill streak of the entire team. We're not sure if this is going to be nerfed or buffed. Hopefully it won't be buffed. It doesn't look like it needs a buff. But I hope it might be that you just need to focus him down, and fast. Anyway, moving on, we have Mercy. Or Angela Ziegler from Zurich, Switzerland. I almost said Sweden. She is the main healer, if the name couldn't give that away. She's a head of surgery at a Swiss hospital and a renowned doctor and scientist. Due to her parents being taken by war, she's highly against the militaristic viewpoint of keeping peace. But despite how much she added to Overwatch, she still is at odds with them. It's to the point where, now that it's gone, she continues to help, using her own methods. Healing. She has helped those affected by the war in her Valkyrie response suit, which is basically a flight suit that lets her heal. There's not much background I can say about her other than that she was a medic and a doctor. Always was. She has 2 weapons. Or Caduceus? I don't know how to pronounce that. I'm just going to say Caduceus Staff, which lets her heal, or give an ally increased damage And then her Caduceus Blaster, which is a pistol. It's nothing much. Her abilities are Guardian Angel, which lets her reach a target ally and get there faster. And Angelic Descent, which is basically a slow fall. Her ultimate is Resurrect, and it, of course, resurrects the nearby ally team that's dead. Really, never having liked the medic class in TF2, I can't make much of an opinion on her. But she seems she'll be rather fun to use as a support and rather helpful when it comes to using Resurrect. The more often she uses that, I feel she'll be more help in the actual matches, and could be a game changer. Next, home stretch, we have Pharah, or Faria Amari, from Giza, Egypt. She has, as the site says, has duty running through her blood. From what we know at BlizzCon, she was always wanting to be with Overwatch due to her mother being in the organization. But it dissolved for some reason after she graduated in the academy. That didn't stop her from protecting the innocent. She first got a job in the Egyptian army, where she raised through the ranks and officer ranks, and was high up and pretty much had a clear shot of joining Overwatch if it didn't dissolve. She did still get a job with Helix Security International, and received training in the Raptora Mark 6, which is what she currently uses. She now goes under the codename Pharah, and still dreams of fighting a good fight, basically. Insert stereotypical good guy here. But besides that, her weapon is a rocket launcher. Yes, a rocket launcher. For a security guard. No, you didn't hear me wrong. And they actually gave a security guard a rocket launcher for some reason. Her one ability is a jump jet, which lets her move around, and she could use the same jet to fly a bit by using spacebar. She also has concussive blast, which deals immense damage to shields and barriers, while knocking back enemies. Her ultimate is Barrage, where she flies up and sends a flurry of rockets over a certain area. Overall, I feel for an offensive, she'll be in the front line more often than not. She'll be the tank if there is no tank, because she seems to deal heavy amounts of damage while still take quite a bit. And lastly, we have Reinhard Wilhelm of Stuttgart, Germany. As Metzen put it, he's the Don Quixote of Overwatch, thinking that chivalry is not dead, and has the disillusion that it is more or less still around still. He was one of the original members of Overwatch, and his unique ethics and personality gave him a high view among peers and superiors. He was a constant reminder that Overwatch was a force for good, basically. He watched as Overwatch became subject to corruption, however, and from some source, we're not sure, and basically watched it disband. However, he didn't stand idle, and he still protects the innocents. He is a tank, as his backstory says, or implies, I should say. He has a giant hammer, so you could say it's hammer time. Yeah, I went there. Anyway, and he has a shield as his other weapon, which functions much like Winston's, except it's only in front of him. His first ability is Charge, which is self-explanatory. Anyone he hits is pinned, and if he hits a wall, the damage done to the one he has pinned is extremely large. It's rather insane amounts of damage. Next, he has First Strike, which is a piercing shot, more or less. It hits and pierces through them, whatever enemy it strikes. And last is Earth Shatter, which does massive damage and knocks enemies down that are in front of him. For a tank, he seems to be great for that job alone. Tanking. Can't really say much more about him, but he seems, even with his hammer, he does quite a bit of damage. If he can get one person charred pinned, it will be almost like an instant kill. Now, instead I'd give background on the game. Here's where. It takes place 60 years in the future, and in the future. As Blizzard, as Metzen put it, it's far enough in the future that they can speculate whatever, but not far enough that it seems so far off. 30 years in the future, in the Overwatch timeline, is something called the Omnic Crisis. The robots, or are called Omnics, go insane for some reason and start the Omnic Crisis. Overwatch was created to help keep peace and fight back, and lasted about 25 years before it dissolved, which led to many of the mercenaries, as stated in the trailer, becoming many of the members, as the trailer stated, becoming mercs. Which leads to current time for Overwatch, all the fights being mercenary contracts, most likely. The maps are so far objective-based. No team deathmatch. There will be payload, attack, defend, and capture points. For example, Hanamura is attack defend, as well as Tomb of Anubis, whereas King's Row is a hybrid of payload and attack defend. That is the one. King's Row is what they showed while at BlizzCon. Huh. Well, I guess I'm going back to this, because it didn't save. Overall reaction time. We finally reached the end of me talking so bloody long. Honestly, this game can be a double-edged blade. As much as I like Blizzard, I hate FPS games. On watching the gameplay videos, just as a first glance reaction, I'd say the game has a chance to be really good or really bad. It can be a flop, much like ESO was on release and discontinued. Or it'll be the biggest success in terms of FPS. I know that, really, ESO is not the best comparison, because it's an MMO and not a first-person shooter, but, it's the only thing I can think of. But now the issue arises that Blizzard has no true experience in first-person shooters, but they also have no experience in MOBA games like League of Legends or whatever. Yet still, Heroes of the Storm, even for Alpha, seems to be going as a strong success among those who are actually in the Alpha. Now, once more, this can be a double-edged blade. With having no experience in the genre, they could, as I said, fail and try to be a TF2 clone, which won't work. Or they can, from what I see in the gameplay video, basically reforge the entire FPS genre, from how they're adding special abilities to each class. Example, the Reaper is having his Death Blossom. You won't see that sort of thing in a normal FPS. Back to the main point, this can either be something tossed away like Titan, whatever that was, we'll never know. Or it'll be a high-rating game. Personally, even due to my hatred for FPS, I'll still play. Just due to the fact it looks really interesting, and putting a twist on generally bland genre. We'll have to see what happens in the end. It's hard to really say what will happen with the game. It will be interesting to see what Blizzard does. It'll be even more interesting to see the twists that they put on it. But until we see what happens, until there's more info put out, I can't really say much more. Until next time, stand strong.